Welcome back to the Long Fly Ball Pod. Another week of Tyler's bad takes airing on your airwaves at 10 a.m. on Friday. We're going to go over some of last week's pod and the things that we missed, things that have changed. The Dernan boys have injuries that we didn't know about. Tyler thought Kearney was in 5A, as well as some of the things with the
Oh, they
top
were in
5.
4A.
You thought they were 4A. They are in 5A. As well as some things that you guys think we missed in the top 25. We'll give some picks for next week's opening slate of games as well. But before we get started, I just want to talk real quick about something that happened on Saturday. As we both know, we're graduates of North Kansas City School District. That's kind of how we got started, is covering North Kansas City and Winnetonka games. It's just really sad to hear the events that happened on Saturday following Northtown Staley. We know there needs to be change. We are doing whatever we can to advocate for positive change. I'll try to keep my political aliases out of it. We always try to, but it's heartbreaking just to see, people that we know and that we went to school with have to deal with tragedy like that. I do want to give thanks to all of the district staff, all of the KCPD and KCPD, and everybody who reported on the event. There was one thing that Dr. Daniels said in her email that really got me, and it was that that the people, this is not verbatim, but the people who gave aid, the athletic administrators, the coaches, the support staff at the schools, are far more representative of the North Kansas City School District in Kansas City than the people who decided that was the idea. Shout out to my mom in the background too, by the way. That's my mom. You might as well get in the frame now, dude. This is really weird because I'm at my dorm and Tyler's at my house.
It's my
So,
house.
wow. Whoa.
I'm here more than you. Let's be honest
Now
here.
you are. Now you are.
I have a cake made for me. Do you hear that?
Yeah. Oh, so you get to have the cake. All right. All right. All right. But that's all I'll say on that. Obviously wishing for the recovery of the victims and that justice is brought to the shooters. But we'll get back to baseball. Well, we're going to talk about basketball first, actually. Tyler, you were able to cover some of last night's action, Staley Oak Park. Heck of a game. That they have
It was
had now,
really
I think,
good
3
game.
games in a row that have kind of been like the spectacle of the Northland, and last night didn't disappoint.
It did not. I it was. I left the game with my ears still ringing. Like it was that
And
loud.
that's insane given that the attendance was limited significantly more than it
Yep.
usually is. And I mean the Leo presence was insane from what I've
It
heard.
was
I'm not gonna
airport
make you
security for
yeah,
me to get
yeah,
in. Shout out
TSA
Susan Highland
level.
got me in.
Yeah,
She did.
shout out to Susan Highland and some of the PR people with the North Kansas City School District. Um, but Lee Summit West Rockhurst double overtime game that was really an upset for Rockhurst,
The
who is
other double overtime game
quite the
was
fans of Metro Sports MoKan right now. But Grandview Raytown, another great game that went to double overtime. Raytown took that one. So Tyler decided today in the group chat that he was going to this is a quote. Uh Tonka gets Raytown. I think Tonka is about to go on a state run, in which Joe responded, "Stop glazing." Um, I'm in the middle on that one. I think they're going to run into Sykeston, who I think wins 5A state. But other than that, I think
Is Sykeston better than Staley?
yes, I think Sykeston's. If I had to give you my top 3 right now, it's Oak Park, um, Vashon, and Sykeston. Sorry, I couldn't think of Vashon.
Because that's kind of what I based it off of. Because I think Tonka could have beat Staley. Just that one first quarter play.
Well, I think KV Stone not playing is also kind of a
Oh yeah, I
is a
texted
big
you. I'm like,
scratch.
they're missing.
I think that totally could have changed that matchup because even though he's not a big, he's kind of like the Charles Barkley forward build where he can get you 10 or 12 rebounds. KV Stone went from like being a guy that you weren't sure what his future was going to be at Staley, and now he's an NAU football commit, and a first team all conference player. So his kind of metamorphosis through the years was one to watch as well. Crazy athletic family, with KV. Um, what's the
His
older brother?
brother stepped up. His
Yeah,
younger brother stepped up.
Kennison stepped up, played really well, and then they've got another older brother, Kendrick Stone. He went to Northwest for a while. I couldn't tell you where he's at now. I know he's transferred a couple times, but all really good players in high school. Kennison's what, a freshman still?
Yep.
So Staley, the rich get richer over at Staley. No, seriously, but the program that Chris Neff has been able to build is impressive.
Dude,
Uh,
I looked bad at this game.
uh-huh.
I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, Staley's missing somebody. And then Daniel Clemens, shout out Dan the man,
Dan,
in
old
all
Dan.
of the snow days he called my senior year. Shout him out. He, he was like, yeah, Staley's missing KB, and I was like, how did I not notice that?
Well, I wasn't there. Chris shot me a text and was like, KV Stone was a late scratch. I guess his name was in the book and they scratched him late.
Mhm.
So I have no idea. I might look into that though, because that, I mean, it's a 1 point game. I think he could have been more than a 1 point swing. Um, but we're gonna start with revisiting some of your takes from last week. I'm gonna give you a chance to avenge yourself. Rockhurst, or excuse me, not Rockhurst, Camdenton and Kearney. You picked Camdenton to win 5A. They actually got cut from the poll late after Ozark Sports Zone was able to verify that neither of the Durnans are going to be able to play this year due to UCL injuries, which makes me think Tommy John. There's
Most
not much
likely. Or
else,
just a safety.
or just
Just a
yeah,
safety.
or just arm safety. I mean, both of them are top 10, top 15 prospects in Missouri, so might be just be playing it safe there. But so who? And then you said Kearney for 4A. Kearney plays in 5A.
Yeah.
So is your
That's
pick,
my old memory back when I
mhm,
played there,
right?
back in my day, you know?
So is your pick Kearney for 5A?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna
And
have the long shot Kearney, and then I'm gonna go Springfield Catholic for 4A. It's kinda
okay.
hard to find another team that can top them.
Yeah. And we're not, this episode won't have a whole lot on 1 through 3A baseball, which is kind of what we're working on right now with the small class player of the year and things like that. But I'm a big fan of Portageville. Licking is another one that we were looking into today. They thought they were snubbed from the top 25, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But small class baseball, we've talked about it kind of on our own, and I think it was mentioned last week. Small class baseball is a little bit different from small class basketball and small class football, where you see in football and basketball, like the 6A and 5A guys are going to have more of the athletes. Some of the private schools in 3 and 4A kind of fall into that category, the Vashons, the Toltons of the world. But you see a lot more of the athletic prowess at 6A, and you see a lot more technical basketball at the 1A level. My girlfriend grew up in Eminence, Missouri, so I got to watch a game or two of theirs, one in person, and like the difference in the style of play and the speed is different, but it's a little bit less pronounced in baseball. Um, I will say that the pitching is usually a little bit better the higher up, the more levels you get.
I feel like it's not it the difference between lower and higher, I think, is velocity. I
Hmm.
don't think much is different besides that. Because I feel like if you're most of the high level kids in lower classes, if you're throwing 90 and you're on a low team, like
Hmm.
a summer
2A.
team,
Yeah.
you're gonna get like, hey, you should come here. Uh
Yeah. Go play for, I mean, even
That's like a coach's suggestion. Like not it's not
right.
recruiting. It's just your coach saying, "Hey, if you want to get noticed, I suggest you go here." Like you're on the border, you can pick either school. You can pick like one of this where it happens sometimes, Platte County and Buchanan schools. If you're in the middle, you have a choice of 4 schools.
Right.
Mid Buchanan, East Buchanan, uh, 5 schools, West Platte, North Platte, and Platte County. A lot of
Mhm.
schools if you're on the
Yeah,
border.
there's a lot in that small
There's a
region.
lot with programs too.
Right. And I mean, like, it's, I cut it from last week, and I don't know if I'll leave it in this week. We did briefly have a thing on recruiting, and it's hard to say that it doesn't exist. You know, I think sometimes it's villainized a lot more because it's an opportunity game. You know, you want the best opportunity to play for the best program, to do the best things after high school. And a lot of guys, like, we could have a whole episode like just sitting down and naming guys that were uber talented and under recruited because of where they played or who like the level of competition they were able to play against. So it's like,
Trevor Klein,
yeah, Trevor Klein, like even
the
my
running backs for Grand Valley.
Ty Williams.
Yeah.
My brain even at one point went to Tony Osborne in Mound City when he had like that
Mhm.
60-point playoff game. And it was like, why are we all not talking about this? Even like Isaiah Howard, the way he's been able to play the last couple of years, it's like, oh, we could play.
Kennedy Diggs for softball.
Right. I mean, we could sit here and name them for hours because they do exist. And that's kind of like the, maybe this is a good thing in some cases. Like we never could verify where they came from, but we heard through the grapevine a bunch that, Isaiah might go to Plattsburgh or Isaiah might go to Oak Park because obviously there's some connection there. And Oak Park had the open coaching job for a while, and we didn't know what that was going to look like. And it was
Well,
like,
now we're gonna see that bill or whatever it's called is gonna
the
pass.
open transfer bill.
It's gonna pass.
Yeah.
I guarantee you. And that recruiting, that's gonna be a part of recruitment.
Hmm.
It's gonna become a thing. Like you're gonna be able to use
Right.
the word now. But if you look at it, I think every school is gonna get better.
I and I
Like
think
you're
that's NIL has kind of worked in the kind of counterproductive to what we thought. Obviously, the schools that everybody knew NIL was going to benefit have been benefited. The Dukes of the basketball world, Alabama, schools like that, Georgia, the schools that have the Uber money to,
Alabama uses NIL.
huh?
You sure? Alabama uses NIL?
Well, I mean, right.
You sure Saban knew what that was?
Yeah, Saban absolutely knew what NIL was. Um, And it's like those schools the rich got richer in that case. But also, I mean, San Diego State and UConn played for the national championship last year. Like, you can't tell me that these mid majors or schools that are fringe Power Five teams didn't get something. And even in a state like Missouri, like how many recruits have stayed and played for Mizzou because of the NIL law, where the second you sign your letter of intent, you can start making money off NIL. Williams Winery, Aaron Rowe, guys like that. So it
Luther
really,
Burden.
well, yeah, Luther Burden. Well, Luther was Illinois. I don't know if he
I think he
qualified.
lives because East St. Louis private. So if he lived on Missouri side,
I have no idea. I'm not going to speculate either. But I mean, that's got to factor into the recruiting conversation for some guys. Some guys don't care about NIL. They just want to go play football. But I don't know. I think that is definitely something that kind of factors into it. So Kearney, Springfield Catholic for your redemption for your takes last week. We are going to hop around a little bit, so we'll talk about some responses to the top 25s. We appreciate all the love and the
not
non.
all of the responses.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about all of them. We don't. There's not enough hours in the day to talk about all the responses. Um, but we are going to go through some of the main ones. Rockhurst, Blue Valley North, DeSoto, and Blue Valley. To name a couple. There are going to be a couple more that we sprinkle in there, but we're going to start with Rockhurst, which was the really big one from yesterday. We got a lot of Rockhurst guys. I think we got like 40% of Rockhurst school commented on
Oh yeah.
this. And here's the thing, and you and I kind of both agreed on it. Rockhurst is not going to go down at all. I think they're going to be a team with a lot of growth opportunities through the year. And the big thing for us is when you look at the top 10, those all of those teams have very solid rotations. And I think Rockhurst, there's no question about the hitters. Evan
Mhm.
DeMario, a guy who's probably going to be in that conversation for player of the year. I know he wasn't in the top 10 today. But definitely a guy who's in that top catcher in Missouri. It's him and Xander Schmidt are the two top catchers in Missouri, in my opinion. Um, their pitching is a little bit more of a question mark, though. I think that was the question mark for them last year. It's not like they don't have a lineup that is going to compete, but going to is their offense going to have to, make the majority of the moves for them this year? I think is the big question surrounding Rockhurst.
And
Uh,
we've looked at them a lot. Like, even when we were making the rankings,
mhm.
we said, "What about Rockhurst?" And we go and look at them, and it's like, do they have enough? But I agree with you. They can only go up. I don't see them going down. If they've,
Right,
I think they'll if they can make it top 25. Not saying they can't,
right. They're
but
in the
right now
top
we're
25.
looking.
It's
Yeah,
that
they're not high up. They're not
right,
where they wanted. They're not a
right.
top 10 team like what we're saying. But those top 10 teams before them all have the pitching. The only question mark on pitching wise up there is Liberty North, but their bats
They have
do a little
such
bit
a good,
more of the
I mean,
carry.
yeah. I mean,
And
and
Liberty
that
North's
was
a
my
team that
question about
designate
Liberty North.
carries for like
That
fielding too.
Right. That's why I didn't have Liberty North that high the first iteration of the top 25 when we first started doing it. And you had to kind of, you dubbed them as your sleeper team last episode. It was kind of a question mark for pitching with them. And Liberty North and Rockhurst are not that far apart. I think the thing about the top 25 that's not understood is that last year there was significantly less parity than there is this year. Liberty North was up here, and then we had a couple teams in this range, the Francis Howells, Vianney's of the world in here, and then we had the majority of the top 25. This year, it's here's number one, here's number 25. Everybody kind of fills into that area. It's very tightly packed in comparison to what last year was. Obviously, it tapers as you get further down, but I think there's teams in the 20s even into the 30s that could really be teams that compete in May and June to win state titles. And that's different from what we've seen in previous years where there's been two teams that I think were absolute favorites. Um,
Another thing,
yep.
it's the preseason power rank. We don't know how any
Right.
team's gonna like. We found out today that this kid transferred.
Yeah. The Ty Thompson.
None, yeah, no one really knew about it, but the players that played with him.
Right.
And we're like, well, we didn't know that. So we put them on there because he was going to carry them or be
I
a
mean, not
big part
even
of their
carry,
team.
but he was going to be a big part of that team.
But like we didn't know he was going to go there. Now you got to look at him and they're without him, so it's going to go
Right. And
not
the
by much, not
is
by much. But
right is even the preseason top 10 for player of the year.
Mhm.
What people don't understand is that like that is not there's more than just the 10. We didn't just choose 10. There's
Mhm.
40 guys that we have considered for that conversation, even more. Where it's going to get whittled down and the rankings are going to change. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes that's more than just, what ends up on the list. Um, and there's going to be plenty of iterations, weekly, bi-weekly, stuff like that. Um, and that kind of carries over to the Kansas side where, some of the input we got on Blue Valley North was that they had two transfers come in. Rosters for Kansas were due like last Friday. I had, and you see two names on a list and you say, haven't heard of those guys before. Maybe they're guys who played JV last year are making the step up. Not, oh, did these guys go play baseball
Or
somewhere
maybe one of
else?
those players that didn't really get that chance at
Right.
another school because they passed that bill. So maybe they moved to go be a starter somewhere else because they were
Right.
behind somebody. So you never know.
And Blue Valley North made an excellent run last year. They got all the way to the state title game where they played Blue Valley West. The problem with Blue Valley North is pitching. They do bring back their He-Man innings eater, the guy who threw the most innings for them. They bring back Trey Wexeldorfer as well. their pitching is not bad. They're not going to be a bad team whatsoever. But for a team that wasn't, 21, a 20 plus win team that went
Mhm.
on a good run at the end of the year, I'm the jury is still out. You know, obviously, I will dispel the fiction that last year's results don't matter. Because if you could go 9-25 with a team full of sophomores, and yeah, you might be a couple wins better, but that doesn't make you a top 25 team. Last year
You know
does
a
matter.
little bit more about Kansas softball than me. How many teams got worse or lost? I feel like it was not a lot.
Kansas last year was kind of the re-up year. In Missouri last year, I think was significantly better than Kansas in terms of talent level. I think the gap has shrunk. We're going to talk who we think would win between Missouri and Kansas here in a little bit. But last year, I don't think All-Star Baseball, if we just take the best, I don't know if All-Star Baseball would have been less than a 3-run game. If everybody played the way that they played in the regular season, statistically speaking. Obviously, guys step up, guys don't step up, what have you. But
I don't know my MVP pick.
I don't think that Kansas was better on paper last year than Missouri. I think it's a lot closer this year. Um, but Blue Valley North, the jury's just a little bit out on them still. And they're a team, again, that I think being top 15 in the state to start the year is not a bad thing. They're a top 10 team in 6A. They're going to do some damage in the Eastern Kansas League. I think they're a team that could win the EKL. But again, preseason rankings, there are things that we don't know, things that we're trying to find out. And that'll just, continue to bleed over into the regular
And
season.
I think their postseason, not really success.
Mm-hmm.
Their postseason, they haven't been able to get past it yet. They're
Well,
a
I
good
mean, they went to the state championship last year. It wasn't like they
yeah.
were a bad team, but comparatively, as the year went on, there was a lot more that they had to do in the beginning of the year. Like, I don't think they were a top 25 team in the beginning of the year. And then they just kind of turned it up when they needed to, which is not a bad thing at all. But I'm pulling
And
it on the record. They
that's
started
what's
the
cool.
year 1-4, like it's not, and then they won to end the year in May, just in the month of May. They went 5-3, but two of those losses were not in the playoffs. They won 5 consecutive games. They beat Gardner,
2019 Nationals.
Olathe South, Manhattan, and Derby. Um, and they will get better, but they were 11-10 last year. Will they make a step in the right direction? Yes. Do I think they will be better than 11-10? Yes. But they don't have a year since 2012 where they have been more than a game or two above 500. 2022, 11-10. 2021, 9-9. 2019, 7-15. We go all the way back to 2012 when they went 21-6. But Mike Dudley, their head coach, has yet to put together a full campaign from top to bottom. Yes, you went to the state championship last year, but
Got hot at the right time.
right, just got hot at the right time. And that's not to say that that's a bad thing. You do what you
In
need
high
to do.
school sports, that if you get hot at the right time, that's all that matters.
Exactly. But I mean, they bring back a total of 70 innings last year. And obviously their ace had a 121 ERA, Griffin Allen. I couldn't think of his name. Thankfully I pulled it up. Griffin Allen had a 1.21 ERA last year and 63 and 2/3 of an inning with 81 strikeouts. He is going to be very good. He's a very good player. Wexeldorf, he's gonna have to be their number 2. 7 and 2/3
Correct
innings.
me if I'm wrong.
Mhm.
Kansas is playing more games this year, correct?
I think they only got like 6 more. It's not like significantly more. It's not like
But that's
Missouri
more
or
pitching. That's still like 1 to 2 more pitchers they're gonna have to step up.
right,
Just
or
because the rules, just because the player safety rules.
the player safety rules, right? So that's kind of my not issue, but the place where I go, they might not be a 20-win team. I do think they're a lot better than 11-10 though. I think they're a better team. But I think last year not including playoff success, if we cut the rankings off of the regular season, they weren't a top 25 team at all. Below 500 going into the playoffs. But again, getting hot at the right time. That's what's important. Aquinas versus DeSoto. Now, this is one that I understand. Aquinas got run ruled by DeSoto in the state playoffs last year. Both teams improved. I would argue that Aquinas improved maybe a little bit more. However, DeSoto has the potential to be a #1 team. They have that very sneaky. I know some other places have them as a #1 team in Kansas. We've got them decently low. I looked at it again, and I'm not going to say that I think I'm wrong, but I am going to say that I see the potential for DeSoto to be a very, very good team. I think Aquinas may have a little bit more individual talent, but DeSoto from top to bottom is very, very good.
I think I mentioned that to you when we were doing the rankings. I'm
Yeah.
like, because as we look at rankings, we look at teams and we look around and we see like all media do it to see exactly where people are putting people.
Right. And I mean, it's
Just get
a
a
lot.
gauge.
It's not like we sit here and we go on PBR Perfect Game and look at, oh, who has the most top players. It's a lot of stats based stuff. A lot of, it's a lot of things that pull into one. And what do we have them at? We've got them at 5, and we have Aquinas at 4. The parity within the top really 10 for Kansas is the same as Missouri. They're pretty much interchangeable. You can put any of those teams in any order, and it would probably pass as a pretty dang good top 25. I think if I had to give it now in a best of 7, I think Aquinas or DeSoto would win in a best of 7. But here's the thing: it's not really based on individual matchups either, because I think that there's a lot of teams that are in the top 10 that would lose to other teams in the top 25. It's a matchups thing. But my 2 cents on that is that if I was going to be wrong about one thing, it's that. And lastly, Blue Valley too low. We've gotten some Blue Valley questions on the IG today. Blue Valley and Blue Valley West. Blue Valley last year, they have name notoriety. Grady Westfall, Hudson Bird in their pitching rotation. I'm going to give you 4 guys, Tyler. I'm going to give you 4 innings pitched, strikeouts, and ERA, which is not, 3 definite measures. But I'm going to give you 3 guys, okay, or 4 guys, and I want you to tell me.
Whip.
I don't know if this even has whip. I can't see their whip. I wish I had their whip.
That's a stat I love.
Huh?
That's a stat I love.
I know. I just put it on the website today. I thought about you when I put it on the website.
I love a good whip.
Whoa. I'm gonna give you 4 guys, and I want you to tell me which 2 you would rather have in a must-win game. Okay. All right. Guy number 1 has thrown 39 2/3 innings. He has 55 strikeouts to 27 walks and a 4.06 ERA. Guy number 2 threw 42 innings. He has 41 strikeouts, 3 walks, and a 1 flat ERA. Guy number 3 threw 39 2/3 innings, struck out 55, walked 27, and had a 4.06 ERA. Guy number 4 threw 45 1/3, 51 Ks to 7 walks, and had a 1.7 ERA. Which 2 guys do you want?
Well, I'm going to take the 2 that don't have a 4.06 ERA.
Right. And that's my thing. Both Hudson Bird and Grady Westfall were both of the guys with the 4 ERA. And I know I compared them to like 2 of the best pitchers, statistical pitchers in Kansas last year, from Bishop Carroll. But the problem is that's 60, really 60s, almost 70 innings is the majority of the innings in Kansas. If 2 guys are accounting for 70 of your innings, that's quite a few games, especially on the Kansas side. In Missouri, it's a little bit less. But I mean, that has to be better for you to win games. And Blue Valley is historically a very good team. They haven't had a double-digit loss season, at least in the last 20 years, or not, at least 15. We'll limit it to 15 because what I can see, at least in the last 15 years. The problem last year was, or until last year, where they were 9-12. Last year, their problem was pitching. They gave up, and really their offense struggled at the end of the year too. But they went out of state at the beginning of the year and they played in Oklahoma, and they gave up 8 runs a game, 9 runs a game. That can't happen and you be a contender.
No.
I mean, getting shelled every once in a while is one thing, but when you have two guys that are the cornerstones of your rotation and they're giving up 4.5 runs a game, you probably are not going to compete for a state championship. And that's my problem. That is my 2 cents on Blue Valley. I think they're going to be a good team.
I feel like to compete, that number of runs allowed is sub 3.
I agree.
I feel like the thing that Liberty North did well during the playoffs was they threw a lot of shutouts. Now, is that because Tate McGuire was just the most dominant pitcher on the planet?
Like a Tim Lincecum run for shout out Tim Lincecum.
What was it, like 3 consecutive no-hitters?
It was 3 consecutive.
Not it was like combined, but
I think it was 3 consecutive shutout games. Or hold on, I can pull it up, but I knew it was something where it was like in the state playoffs for about 2.5 games. I think Nixa got him at the end of a game. But they were that. Who was the closer? Was Ty Wisdom the closer for them? He would come in like the 7th every game.
Yeah.
He did it against Blue Spring South when we went out and watched him. Which, by the way, I know we quote games that we watched a lot, and those are games we watched together. We collectively have watched a lot more games than the ones that we quote. Here was there in May. Even after their last loss was to Lee Summit, which was an upset loss. Lee Summit was below 500 last year. They lost 3-2. The rest of their games, they played 7 games after that. They beat Liberty 8-0, North Kansas City 12-0, Oak Park 2-0, Staley 1-0, Rockhurst 2-0, Nixa 2-1, and Francis Howell 9-3. And I'm pretty sure that run for Nixa was in the bottom of the 7th. Like,
don't say Rockhurst now. You can't say the Rockhurst score. Don't say that.
I'm not allowed to say scores that games that Rockhurst lost it. But
you were told that you can't talk about Rockhurst anymore.
I'm legally disavowed from talking about Rockhurst. Another one that we should get into is Blue Valley West. Back-to-back state champion, not number 1, not in the top 5. They're at 7. I understand the logic that the big class champion should always be number 1 for the start of the next year. But I just don't think that you can really use that in any scenario that's not professional.
I mean, even professional, it doesn't happen.
Right. There's too much movement.
In 2016, in 2016, who put the Royals number 1 on power rankings?
Right. Logically speaking. Blue Valley West was veteran last year. When me and Chris Kamler did their first state championship, where they walked off. I can't remember who they walked off. It was one of the out of area teams. Was it Washburn Rural? Yes, it must have been. They beat Rural in the semis and played Manhattan. They walked off Manhattan 4-3 in the 7th. They were like down 3-1 going into the 7th inning. We looked at that group and we said, "Oh, there's a lot of juniors. They're going to come back next year." And we also obviously heard, Eli Lovich is going to be one of the best, probably according to Joe Allison, was potentially the best of the three Lovich brothers that have came through Blue Valley West. The problem now is that those juniors were seniors last year. Those guys are gone. Jack Darsh, Austin Young, guys like that. Eli Lovich is going to have to push this team over the hump, I think. They've still got a very good young group. This is going to be a retool year for them, I'd like to call it, where it's not a rebuild year. They're not going to be bad. I just don't think that they're going to be as formidable as they were last year. In comparison, obviously 23-2 last year, 17-6, and they won the state title. But I think last year was the peak of that mountain. Obviously you picked them to win a third in a row.
I think they got one more peak. They got one more peak the last year.
I totally understand the logic for that, but I just don't see right now a world. Honestly, I think the Blue Valley West to Blue Valley North margin is shorter than the rankings may indicate. But I have some belief in Blue Valley West still. And I think that they are going to definitely, again, be a team that's you're going to have to keep in the conversation for the 6A state champs. Last on that mark is Oak Park was one that we've gotten a couple times. And Oak Park, I think this is their best year. I think they have their best group this year. I haven't been able to check it yet because they did not send us game changer stats last year. They sent us like pencil and paper kept stats. I'm pretty sure Aiden Hinkle is within 30 hits of the record, or at least within 50, because I know he has 110 plus because he broke the Oak Park record last year. As a junior, I think they are going to be a fringe top 25 team all year. That if they get really hot at the right time, could do some damage in districts. Like their district will still most likely be the Liberty schools and Staley. They're going to have to run through a couple buzzsaws.
I think that's where it comes tough.
That's the thing is like you look at the way the districts are laid out, and
I think that's where
yeah,
I think that's where it comes out. Like the runs allowed.
Mm-hmm.
That pitching staff for Oak Park, they're going to give up runs, but it's not because their pitchers are bad. It's because they're facing a Liberty North lineup, a Liberty lineup, which Liberty's always good. They're always a good team.
Right.
They're
They're never not
They're always
good.
a good team.
Right.
They're going to face Staley, which lineup is really good, and their pitching is really good.
Mm-hmm.
So Oak Park could look down, but their opponents they're facing is really good.
I think you have to kind of predict what you think records are going to be for top 25 purposes. Like, where do we think this group falls in? And I think Oak Park is going to be that team that you see that plays a hard enough schedule where they're a teens loss team, a 13-14 loss team, but you still say, man, if they're firing, I'm not sure I want to play them. They're not a team. They're a very like a team that you could overlook, you know, if you think you've got Liberty North on the horizon, if you're Staley and you're playing Oak Park in the first round somehow because that district's insane, and you know you're going to probably play Liberty North in round 2 if you win, you go, man, like we gotta, especially pitching matchups. On the pitching matchup side, you say, oh, who do we want to face these two teams, knowing that we're going to have to play again in 2 days. And I think that's where they can catch you, is when you say, maybe we don't throw Brody Earlbeck today, the Iowa commit. Maybe we don't throw Brody Earlbeck today, who, by the way, I knew he was going to be very good. The first time that he ever pitched, I was calling the game. And I looked at my call sheet. I didn't have his name on my call sheet. I was like, what is happening? It's a freshman kid. And I heard through the grapevine of some of the baseball coaches, they were like, he's going to be a high major Division I prospect. Long, lanky, lefty, uh, really good movement. He's got good stuff. The velocity's getting there with him now too. You're like, this kid's going to be really good. Um, but yeah, I mean, you're in a position where you either got to throw him today or you got to throw him in round two, and you make the decision. Maybe we're going to throw him in round two when we're going to really
I
need
think
him.
that's what a lot of teams do. They throw their best pitcher that second game,
Right, but you still got to win the first game. Is the problem that some of them run into?
which
Uh,
is where you get into the innings count, the pitch count.
right.
Like, can you manage him to pitch 3 innings? Let's try to keep the momentum on our side and then throw
Blue
out a bullpen.
Valley, Blue Valley won a championship doing that. I swear. I've got to look at it. Hold on. I've got to find this. I've never looked at like the actual stat layout of it. Oh, they
Have I
don't
told
have
you
it.
the
Oh, they don't
reason
have
why
it. I
have I
wish,
told you
yeah.
have I told you the reason why I didn't like the 2015 Royals?
Hmm.
They changed baseball forever. 5 innings is all you needed for a starter, and then bullpen. That's when we saw the end of complete games, going far into games for
Right.
every team in the MLB.
Well, and another reason I think for that is because these teams have looked at the stats that are the third time through the order stats. When pitchers face the lineup for the third time, there's a, I'm not going to call it statistically significant, but there is a slight uptick in batting average and OPS and on base, obviously.
Ask Kevin
Uh,
Cash about that.
yeah. Kevin Cash lost a World Series because he decided that Blake Snell, didn't Blake Snell give up like one hit?
Oh yeah,
He'd given
he's
up
done.
one hit and they pulled him in like the sixth. I that was the last full World Series that I watched every pitch of. And I remember the guy I was watching the game with, I looked at him and I was like, they just lost the World Series. And I'm not even going to say I'm some baseball savant, but it's like, I feel like there's times you go off the numbers and there's times that you say, yeah, we should probably leave this guy in until he lets
There's times
somebody.
where you Bruce Bochy it and you say, "Here's Madison Bumgarner. I don't care what it
Right.
says. He's the best postseason pitcher of all time."
Right. You're like, and there's times where you go off numbers and there's times you go off vibes. And I think I thought he was going to bocce it. I thought he was. And the Dodgers won a World Series because of it.
There's an asterisk next to it.
What do you think it was a Disney ring because they played 60 games that year?
Yep. Dodgers always fall off.
It's the Dodgers. Hey, when you spend $1 billion, we're about to see how much money can you
Do you see
spend.
how much their pitcher gave up today? Like 8 earned runs or something?
It's spring
Yamamoto?
training. The Royals are number one in the
Bro's
category
playing
right now.
double A
I'm
players.
not
Bro's playing double A players.
also fair. But I don't know. I mean, if you're the Dodgers, I guess you'd rather him get shelled now. Like if you want your
Shohei
guy
didn't
to
look
give up
good
eight,
in his
huh?
first couple outings. Shohei didn't look good in his first couple outings when he first came over.
Right. That's
Adjusting.
right. You got to adjust. Um, but I think we've covered most of kind of the top 25 questions. Uh, I'm going to talk briefly, if you'd like, about Missouri versus Kansas, who wins in a 7-game series. I don't know if you have
Can I
access.
pick my winner? Can I pick my winner first?
Of course,
I'm going Missouri.
I also have Missouri. Can you see you can't. I I don't know why I didn't send that to you. The first team all Missouri and first team all Kansas. Uh
If you want to send it to me.
I just sent you Missouri. I'll be sending you Kansas in just a second. But I think that it's a lot closer than it was last year. Last year, I think Missouri wins by 4 or 5 runs. But this year, I'm pretty confident.
Missouri have an infield consisted of shortstops.
Pretty much, yeah. They're like 5 short. I so it you'll see this before you see the first team on Missouri and first team on Kansas. We just took 4 infielders because it was weird to take two second basemen and 2 shortstops. So we just took 4 middle infielders, 2 at each position. I think Kansas is close this year. I think their pitching is catching up to Missouri. Obviously, Kansas's pitching in my opinion, used to be better when we first started, and Blue Valley Southwest.
I think Siebert could do a lot. I think
I do
if
too.
I
We're still
think he
waiting on a
wins the game.
pronunciation for that, by the way.
Did I ever tell you how I figured out about that kid?
Uh,
It was a TikTok.
really.
Prospects to watch.
And you're like, wait
And
a
I was
minute. Like, wait, I know that guy.
like,
I've seen that uniform before. Um, I'm I think Kansas is pretty young. Like the first team all Kansas list, there's some young guys too. I think there's 326s on there. So I think Kansas really could step back in this race a little bit in the coming years. Um, but I think that the pitching right now is where I would set it away. And it's really because you get to see so much more of the Missouri guys.
mhm.
You get 3 or 4 more outings out of the Missouri guys every year. So and I think the velocity is a little bit of an uptick on the Missouri side as well. I think Kansas has the best pitcher, and I think Missouri has the next 3.
Jack knows the hypothetical 4 starter.
I I think now
Hypothetical.
he is. Now he is because we did. Durnan is still on this list. I will edit that before it gets out. But yeah, there's going to be a couple things that have to change because I haven't edited this today since uh we're gonna have to get Ty Thompson off of here. Shout out to Ty Thompson, or maybe I did.
Yeah, it looks like you did.
Yeah, looks like I did. I
Look
didn't
at
remember
you.
that I had. Look at me, or maybe I just had enough foresight because I did them at different times. Um, but I think Missouri clears. I think this might be in a 7-game series. I think they win in 6.
I don't know. I say 5.
You are a lot less confident on these Kansas kids than I am, but
No,
I think that
I
changes a lot
like
next
the.
year. I
I
think that
think you're. I think you would see Siebert pitch game 1 and 5. I think that's what you would have to do.
yeah. I mean it also are we
Let's see
playing
if it goes to a 7-game series. You're gonna have Madison. You're gonna have the Madison Bumgarner CC Sabathia moment where he goes out and pitches game 7 too.
are
Like
we
let's.
first things first, are we playing like the MLB schedule of a 7-game series?
Yes.
Like back to back, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like
Bye.
yeah.
It's 2 home for the home team.
Uh-huh.
Bye 3 away. Bye 1.
1.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I think they went in 6. Um, and I don't know. I feel bad saying that because Grady Westfall,
And how
Lee
do we
Walsh,
decide home?
Kevin Blahovich, good guy,
Who gets home field advantage?
good pitchers. I think every single one of these games is like a 4-3 game.
Oh, it could go.
I think there's probably
We've seen good pitchers get lit up.
shelled. Um, but I don't know. Prove us wrong. We're here for the wild takes. But I really think Missouri's got the nod.
Like I can tell you, do you remember Nate Carnes for the Royals a couple years
Yes.
back? Filthiest pitcher ever. When healthy, he was great.
Mm-hmm.
But even when he was healthy, he would throw that one curveball that ended 450 feet in left field.
Right. Remember the in last year's spring training when Josh Bell hit that ball and it sounded like a bomb went off?
Who was that? Oh,
He hit it off of us, didn't he?
Dela Cruz's first home run.
Oh, the one that was like,
That ball had a family.
yeah, the one that was like you could pick it up on radar.
Yes.
That was insane. Which is crazy because it still went like 440 feet. Usually if it gets that high, you have a 42 moment where you're like, is that a home run? Yeah, if we're playing in an elevator shaft. I'm gonna overlay that clip, by the way.
Hey,
All rights reserved.
it's Josh Donaldson. Is that a home run? Wait a second. Wait. He did a bat flip. Oh, it's a fly ball out.
If Josh Donaldson pimps a homer, it's a fly ball. It's a fly out. Um, I think the last thing that we'll talk about before we, kind of call it a day is softball top 25, which you will have seen by the time that this comes out, but has not been published now. So we can't get, we're going to try to get ahead of some of the things that may be issues. But Tyler, I'm going to pull that up on my phone here, and I want you to tell me a couple things that you think could be problems and some very confident picks that I know will end up being wrong.
Don't tell me I'm wrong about McPherson. We'll have a fight.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong about McPherson. I think you're wrong about McPherson baseball, but
we'll see at the end of the year.
yeah, we will revisit these takes.
Capon, a lot of people. Capen, yeah.
I
We
said
got to
Capon.
go.
Okay, hold on. I said Capon, and the entire municipality of Wichita came after me immediately. And they were like, it's Capen. And then you and I looked it up, and it's totally supposed to be pronounced Capon. But people started to say Capen, and now everybody says Capen. So I guess it's Capen.
So I had Capen higher up on the list. And then when I start talking to people, they're like, they're one of the teams where their record is deceiving. And their player stats are deceiving.
So they're
It's
least on the
like
West.
I
Least on West basketball. Least on West basketball. I will throw shade.
Or let's say Winnetonka. Let's say Liberty North played Winnetonka, Ruskin, and what's that one team? Lincoln Prep and East. They played them 4 schools the entire year. You're going to come out with a good record, right?
Oh, so you're saying that they play in the Greater Wichita Athletic League. Yeah. So you're saying besides them, Wichita Northwest is ranked, but besides that, and Bishop Carroll. So you're saying that like 7 of their league games were just like throwaways, like Wichita South.
They're like
okay.
kind of like
gotcha.
they're all like right there. There was another team that won 5A and they went back to back, and I don't have them on this list, and I got crucified for having them on the list, like full on crucified. They're like they lost 8 starters. 8.
Which I think is a bigger thing in softball than it is baseball, but continue.
I think it's big in both sports.
Obviously losing 8 of 9 start 95% of your starters is obvious. Always.
Now let's say like Liberty North lost 13 seniors, but they platooned a lot more than what you do in softball.
Right.
Bishop Carroll at 4. I have high hopes for them. They bring back a lot. Olathe Northwest and Olathe West being 3. You know how you have all of the Rockhurst and Blue Valley kids after you? I'm going to have some parents after me because the kids don't go after me. The parents do.
Yeah.
That's what's different between baseball and softball. So I'm going to have a lot of softball parents.
In women's sports, the kids are a lot nicer.
Those parents spend a lot of money. A lot of money for their kids.
Right. In every sport, that's true.
If you don't know, softball camps, I think they cost a lot more than baseball camps because there's a lot less.
Also a fair point. There's not like the, like PBR and perfect game kind of deals for softball as much. Should there be? I think so. I think, we talk a lot about kind of the difference between us in those groups from what we do. But I think that we rely on them in a weird, like, I don't even know what to characterize it at, but but we couldn't do our job as effectively if PBR didn't exist.
Mhm.
I also think in some ways they couldn't do it as effectively if groups like us didn't exist. Um, but I
So
think it is a symbiotic relationship in a lot of ways.
I'm gonna mention Bishop Carroll here. They have the most upside for years to come.
Uh-huh.
Um, I sent you the player rankings for Kansas, which aren't done yet, but
Okay.
if you wanna open that real quick. Um, there's 2 2026 grads on there
Yeah.
for Bishop Carroll that both had sub 1 ERAs
Hmm.
as freshmen who started, and they both split the innings. So I think they're only gonna get better.
Hey, and I'm not gonna not make you say it because it's not out yet. I'm gonna not make you say it because we're gonna text somebody before we even attempt a pronunciation on that. So they're gonna know. That person's obviously gonna know if they watch this. But
Allison Orth, I can pronounce that one. The other one, Isabella, I'm not saying your last name, I'm sorry.
it's actually it's probably Fanatiel, but
Probably.
something like that. But I'd rather ask and not get it wrong. But there's a lot of we've got some
Do you
picks on
do you know how our do you know how we used to compare Kennedy Diggs to Shohei?
that. Hmm.
I want you to go to Kaylee Washington. So Max Preps has all of the stats.
Okay.
If you go to Max Preps, do Kaylee Washington. She is the definition of Shohei Ohtani.
A 174 ERA, 315 Ks. She hit 542. Oh, this is awesome.
Now
542
the
as a
next
sophomore.
one, yes, her and Peyton are going to be
1 and 2.
fantastic.
Yeah.
The
Honestly,
other one that
like,
was really good, Shelby Underwood.
mhm,
I'm not going to say her ranking that I have her at because she's
yeah.
definitely higher. She batted, listen to this, 766.
Stop it.
Do you need some CPR? You need some CPR real quick? Like
Seven, what?
766.
She hit, oh my God. In 36 games, she's hitting 807. How did I not know about this? And it's not even like she's just hitting singles. She has 13 homers and 92 RBI.
I think
Tyler,
that's,
how is she not number? Come on, dude.
hold on.
This is insanity.
You're looking at her career stats.
I know. In two
Yeah,
years.
she's, yes.
What grad year is she? She's a senior this year?
Yeah.
It's a sophomore.
It's not official. Her placement is not official because I'm still looking at stuff.
Okay.
But
Can
oh my
we
god,
can we agree that if you're pitching against her, like, let's say you're a softball pitcher, I'm throwing 4 balls, not even close to the zone. She like
can you intentionally walk in softball? Can you go?
is that a thing? I haven't watched enough softball to know, but she's also a good basketball player too. Um,
Yeah.
but
A lot of these girls are
are two-way,
multi-sport
two
athletes.
ways. I genuinely would probably not throw a pitch close to her. I would be surprised if
Like
she,
it,
dude, she in 36 games, she has 92 RBI. That's like 3 RBI a game, nearly.
uh, Brevin Kelaporis.
Yeah, Brennen Kelaporis.
I'm guessing that's how you say it. Sorry if I butchered
That's
again.
probably it.
She is fantastic as well. I think she's the leading home run hitter that's coming back
Okay,
with
so
not
like last year's.
so
Okay.
she didn't lead it, but she's the one coming. Madison Walker from the Olathe West, her former teammate hit 16 last year, which is
Dang.
insane.
She
She's the one that
did.
she'll come back.
She had 9 last year. 475
Um,
hitter. Yeah, she had a good year. But
by the way, Shelby Underwood, her slugging was a 1.63.
That's insane, dude.
Um,
That's nuts.
there's an abundance amount of talent in Kansas softball, and I'm just now getting into the depths of it. On
Right.
this
You're at the
list,
tip of
what
the iceberg.
I have 10 on here.
Mhm.
There's probably 20 or 30 that I am
Yeah, go for 30, whittle
missing.
it down.
Um,
Wow, though. I mean, like,
the Shelby Underwood, I looked at those. I'm like, how are you batting 800 in your career and batting above? You're batting 744. You're like, oh my gosh. Peyton and Kaylee are unbelievable two-way players too, but Shelby's hitting alone
right. And I
is
mean,
up there.
I don't know. I'm gonna give you plenty of time to figure that out. I know what did I
Yes.
tell you, like I wanted it done by today or some
It,
crazy
and then
that
the internet went down. AT&T decided to
yeah, AT&T went down, Instagram and Facebook didn't work for a while. Technology is failing. You're gonna have to listen to this podcast through Canon Canon string here in a couple weeks. But wow.
Have you seen better stats than Shelby Underwood
No.
for high school softball?
Statistically, that's the statistically like I remember when Bailey Mesqua was like raking for 3 or 4 straight
She was
weeks.
sitting like I think she was like 4 weeks in a row hitting above 600. But I
She's hitting
think she
above 600 every day. She,
I,
dude, that's
yes.
insane.
Bailey
You
Mesqua,
look at her game by game stats off
shout
the
out
end
to her.
for at least 20 minutes. But
Dude, when I
that's
used to send you player of the weeks, like I would always have like two
stats
or
on there.
three extra, and
Yeah.
you can't really do that in Twitter polls.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, I need you guys to look at this and tell
Whittle
me who
this
you think.
down.
And there was very few that we were like, Bailey needs to get off.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Bailey and Kennedy every week. It felt like.
I'm gonna give you a lot more leeway than I used to give you for deadlines. Now knowing this information. And I feel bad in a lot of ways because it's like I don't pay attention to that as enough as I should, kind of running the baseball aspect. There's so much talent, and it's I feel like it's not getting nearly the recommend or the air
Mhm.
time that it deserves. And we're gonna work on that. I think that's a big thing for me,
In
especially now.
Kansas softball, I'm gonna
No.
issue an apology real quick to the parents and people. I was huge into Missouri softball even when I was in high school and college. Like, I'd go out and watch them. Kansas softball, I watched, Candy a couple of times
Mhm.
because I heard that she was a big deal. She is a big deal, by the way. Um, but I really fell underneath a rock for a
Right.
while for
Well, you
Kansas
lived in
softball.
Lynn
So
too.
I'm jumping back into it. I lived in Lynn, Missouri for about a year and a half, if anyone knows where that's at.
Hmm. Sadly.
Um, it's I'm just jumping into it. These rankings that you guys will see, um, even my first ones from Missouri, if you guys go back and look at those, they weren't the best. Hey, I had the winner. I had the winner in top five. Like top five up there.
A champ in top five.
But they're always gonna get better. I'm always gonna miss players. You're gonna this even happens major league level.
Hmm.
Uh, Baldo Jimenez was fourth in Cy Young voting one year, and you never heard of that guy. Rick Porcello won a Cy Young, never heard of that guy.
Right.
Like
Well, I've heard of
you're always gonna have those big years, and that's where I got yelled at this last year or last softball season for
it. Mhm.
Missouri, where I asked parents, "Hey, can parents and coaches, can you guys send me stats? Send
Mhm.
me players that you guys want for player of the week. Send me all this stuff. Do that. That helps me."
Right.
Because Marty McDonald, his daughter, Marley, I think it is.
Something like
Marley, she she is fantastic. But
that.
I don't have access to those stats because not everyone opens up their game changer.
Right. And unless we're doing game by game stats.
Yeah, not the thing about Kansas and Missouri, there's a lot of rural areas where I don't get those stats sent to me. I bet you I can go out in rural Kansas. I say, "Hey, I'm Metro Sports." They're gonna be like, "Who are you?"
Yeah. What do you do? I mean, especially now, like this is the first year that this is being a thing for us.
Yeah, but it's only going to get better. I'm going to learn players' names. Um, I may move to Columbia. It's not official yet because I'm
Mhm.
still jumping around with job offers. Not to leave Metro Sports. I'm here. New contract, by the way, till
Ah,
2026.
yes. Right.
Announcement right there. Big announcement.
Right.
Um, they decided to keep me around for a couple of years. Um, Brennan
We'll
just,
see how that looks.
but it's only going to grow.
100%.
Softball was a big thing in negotiating my contract. You can ask Brennan. Um, that in small
It was a
schools.
very quick negotiation.
I
Um,
don't know. My last one took pretty long.
yeah, well, it's man, we both sucked on that one, but
um,
we're we're in the same headspace on it, you know.
softball was a huge thing for me.
Mhm.
Metro Sports, they acknowledged softball before I got there.
Right.
They were like, "Oh, that pitcher just struck out 20 hitters." No
It was year
offense. No
one. I
offense.
mean, oh, I
No offense.
100%. There's a lot of things like when I look back on I have, you know, been at the helm. Me, Joe, and Landon have been doing this for now 2.25 years. And there are some things that I look back on and say, we should have done a better job for the sake of the players, for the sake of the teams, for the sake of our brand, even that we should have just done better. And softball in the exposition was one of them. I think small right now, the biggest one that weighs heavy on me is small classes. We want to be an advocate for everybody. So it'll be a continued fight and a continued push to do that. Um,
That KCI conference has a lot. Small class.
right. Something that I look forward to. And I mean, it's it's a battle for a lot of reasons that are not lost upon people in small class sports. But it's something that, we have an emphasis on, and that if you're
Mhm.
listening to this, you understand that we are, it is a focus for the future. So I think we're pretty much wrapped up. We have actually
And
gone significantly
the
over what I thought the time was.
the way I'm gonna put it too is
Mhm,
my family is from King City, Missouri.
mhm.
If any of you guys know where that's at, they have 8-man football, and I don't even know if they have a baseball team. Like,
Right.
but they're from there. My mom went to Mid Buchanan High School, played softball there with my aunt. My family's full of small town school, and a lot of those coaches, they don't know because I didn't tell them. They played with my parents. A lot of them went back to go
Right.
coach for their schools, and what I get told is like, "Hey, like you should really go cover this team." Mid Buchanan, I'll be honest, wasn't in my thought process in Missouri softball
Mhm.
until you see them go against Blue Springs South, which it was basically like a Liberty North 2 years ago, but they ended up losing
Right.
because they lost to a really good pitcher, Lauren
Right.
Booty.
So,
But when you go 1-0 against a top perennial school that's blowing out
yeah.
every school underneath them, it's something. There's a lot of talent out there.
Right.
I'm gonna get better at it, better at noticing players and stuff.
But yeah, we are significantly over time.
Time to
Or
go to margaritas with your mama.
is that what you're doing?
Yes.
You're going to margaritas with my mom,
Yep.
dude. Dude. All right.
Rockhurst
Well, this
people,
this
light it
podcast
up.
this podcast is over. Um, but yeah, we will see you next Friday at 9 a.m. Leave your comments down below. Shoot us a DM. We try to get back to
Chris,
them.
stay out of here.
Huh?
Chris, stay out of here.
Yeah, unless you're Chris Camler, don't ever comment on our stuff again. Uh, Peace out. We'll see you next time.